Number 10. Millen CYRUS'S meth problem. Millen CYRUS is a pretty big name in Indonesia. As a trans Instagram celebrity, she was looked up to as a role model in many different communities across the country, and indeed abroad. Her birth name is Muhammad Milendaru Prakasa, but she changed it after undergoing a series of operations. Alas, Millen turned out to be a pretty poor example of a role model. She was busted by the police in Jakarta as part of a drug sting. Local police were tipped off that there was some shady business going on at a hotel in North Jakarta. When they arrived, they found Millen CYRUS in possession of alcohol and crystal meth. Drugs are not something you want to mess with in Indonesia. This was instant jail time, but instead of being put in a woman's holding cell, Millen was shoved into a cell with men. All politics aside, it was a pretty poor move on the prison. Regardless of what her birth gender was and what her identity is now, she 100% looks like a woman and has the parts to go along with it. Putting her in a male cell proved instantly problematic, and they ended up having to put her in a special cell by herself to remain neutral. In the end, the whole point is that Millen CYRUS, a role model for many young people dealing with social issues, was doing meth in November 2020 with some shady characters in a greasy hotel room. Number 9. Inappropriate student relations. Stephanie Peterson was supposed to be a role model for her students. She was a middle school teacher in Smyrna Beach who went above and beyond in her work. She also decided to have an inappropriate relationship with one of her students. This was a truly bizarre case. Peterson was 27 years old when she committed the unbelievable act of undressing her 14-year-old student. She was sentenced in 2018 to spend 3 years in prison, then to be put on 2 years of community control, also known as house arrest. Plus, she'll now be registered as a sex offender for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to teach again, at least not in any school in the US. Stephanie ruined her life before she even hit 30, and quite frankly, she isn't anybody's role model anymore. If you're wondering how this could even have happened, let's start from the beginning. Stephanie Peterson and her student became entangled in a romantic relationship on November 1st, 2017. It continued until January 31st, 2018. They communicated through Snapchat, sending inappropriate pictures to one another. Stephanie Peterson would drive to his home at night. The student would sneak out of his parents' house and fool around with her in the driveway. She would also invite him over to her own house, and they sometimes met in a barn behind the student's house. Number 8. Henry Ruggs III. On November 2nd, 2021, Tina Tintor died from thermal injuries. Her death was directly caused by former Las Vegas Raiders player Henry Ruggs III. Henry was a major football star and role model for people everywhere, as most football players are. But just like so many other football players, Henry's personal life was kind of a disaster. He was driving his Corvette at 156 miles per hour when he crashed into Tina's RAV4. It was a dramatic accident that saw Tina's car explode in a fireball. She was trapped inside the vehicle with her dog, while Henry could do nothing but stand and watch as she and her pet burned to death. The coroner determined Tina was literally scorched alive, likely in the most agonizing way possible. She had nothing to do with sports. She was just going for a drive with her dog, and her life was brought to a tragic and unnecessary end by a football player who thought he could do whatever he wanted. Tina had dreams of becoming a computer programmer. She had worked for Target for 2 years before recently acquiring a better job at an insurance company. She was really working hard in life and trying to get ahead, and all that was taken away by Henry Ruggs, whose blood alcohol content was found to be over double the legal limit. Henry was officially charged with 2 counts of driving under the influence, causing death. However, he hasn't been given a sentence yet. He's been sitting on house arrest this whole time, living it up in his mansion. When his trial is finally over, he could be looking at 50 years of prison. Number 7. The perfect role model. An unruly airline passenger who was accused of groping and punching flight attendants had previously won an award for the perfect role model. The bizarre airborne fiasco happened in the summer of 2021 on a Frontier Airlines flight. The plane left Philadelphia at approximately 10:41 p.m. on a Saturday night, bound to land in Miami 2.5 hours later. Maxwell Berry from Ohio just couldn't sit in his seat and mind his own business for a measly 2 hours. Instead, he picked on the female flight attendants, repeatedly groping them as they went by. When one of the male crew members spoke up against his rude behavior, Maxwell punched him in the face. Well, things didn't go great for Maxwell. He had to be taped to his seat and was then arrested by the Miami-Dade Police Department upon landing. He was publicly embarrassed in front of the whole country. The truly ironic part is that, according to the New York Times, he won a college frat award for being the perfect role model and for leading the fight to dismantle fraternity stereotypes. Number 6. Aaron Hernandez. Just 2 weeks before Aaron Hernandez was arrested for murder, he claimed to be a role model for all Hispanic people. That may have been true when he was playing for the New England Patriots, but after he killed semi-professional football player Odin Lloyd, his status of role model was promptly revoked. Odin Lloyd was killed on June 17, 2013. He was shot in an industrial park, not more than 1 mile from the house of Aaron Hernandez. On the night before the incident, Hernandez texted 2 of his friends, asking if they could come to Massachusetts. He was saying something about losing trust in someone, and he was obviously quite upset. What his friends didn't realize was that he wanted them to help with a murder. The police investigation revealed that Lloyd and Hernandez had been in contact several hours before the killing and had gotten into some kind of argument over a bag of marijuana. It was also clear that Lloyd had said something Hernandez really didn't like, which threw him into a mad frenzy. He had his 2 friends come up to Massachusetts, and the 3 of them ambushed and executed Lloyd. On April 15, 2015, Hernandez was found guilty of murder. 4 days later, at 3 o'clock in the morning, he was discovered dead in his cell. A star athlete and role model for millions turned murderer and corpse in the blink of an eye. What's the one case of a football star falling from grace that really shocked you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 5. Bad school teacher. Yet another school teacher, someone who was supposed to be looked on as a role model by her students, has gotten into some major trouble. The only good news is that she wasn't messing around with one of her students. Instead, 40-year-old Laura Pollard Ramos of Winter Haven was arrested on March 12, 2021 for theft. What did she steal? It wasn't school supplies and it wasn't lunch money. It was $66,000 from her sick grandmother. Laura was made the power of attorney for her grandmother in 2013. Sadly, her grandma was having difficult times with her health. She trusted Laura to write checks as needed to take care of her. In October of 2020, the family checked in to see how the grandmother was doing financially and found that she had a negative balance in her account. The police investigated and learned that Laura had been gradually draining her account for years. Between November of 2018 and November of 2019, Laura siphoned $66,836, bringing her grandmother's account to a balance of negative $193. This is a woman who was supposed to be teaching kids how to grow into adults, and yet she was stealing from her own family. Definitely not a very good role model. Number 4. Instagram role model's mega fraud. Instagram role model and influencer Kayla Massa was arrested on February 13, 2020. At just 22 years old, Kayla had managed to build herself quite a fan base, with young people all over the country admiring her extravagant lifestyle. Yet, as it turned out, her lifestyle was nothing to admire. She was charged for committing bank and wire fraud, stealing $1.5 million from her followers. People were looking up to this woman, and in return, she was robbing them. Kayla scammed her victims using her Instagram stories. She shared pictures of her bank balance, huge stacks of money, people flashing bank cards, and things like that. Basically, she made it look as though she were super rich. She then made all her followers believe it was easy to make all that money. She said that if anyone following her wanted to make legal money easily, just send her a message. She informed everyone who sent her a message that they could earn $5,000 by doing one thing. They only need to send her their debit card and PIN number. This, of course, was so that she could deposit the cash into their account. She even said that if they weren't comfortable, that they could drain their account first of all the money they had. Kayla said it was all about tax write-offs. Her friend who owned a business would use their card to deposit money, and they would get paid for helping. Nobody got paid for anything except Kayla. She scammed these people and drained their bank accounts. What makes it so much more tragic is that it was mostly her followers 18 years old or younger. It was just young people who looked up to Kayla and wanted to make some money. They were the victims here. Number 3. The fall of an Olympian. Jeff Hugel was a major swimming star, an Olympian who won medals at the 2010 Commonwealth Games. He was a role model to all the young swimmers out there, which made what happened next so tragic. In 2014, after his marriage fell apart, he was arrested for possession of cocaine. After he'd retired from swimming, he'd picked up a bit of a drug habit. Jeff was actually with his ex-wife at the time of his arrest. They were watching the Randwick races in Australia together when they got pulled aside by the police and searched. The cops found cocaine on them, and Jeff's life was upended in an instant. He was publicly shamed, humiliated, and ended up leaving the country. When he did an interview in 2022 to talk about his turbulent past, he admitted to not seeing either of his daughters in 18 months. The possession charge just ruined his life. He had to make a new life for himself in Singapore with a new wife and a new kid. Number 2. Soccer star's DUI. Abby Wambach was arrested in April of 2016 on a DUI charge. It happened late on a Saturday evening when she was pulled over for failing to stop at a red light. Portland police knew she was drunk right away. She failed the sobriety test and was brought to jail. Although she was polite and cooperative throughout the entire thing, she was still too drunk to be driving. Even once they got her back to the Central Precinct in downtown Portland, she failed the breathalyzer test. Now, many of you may not know who Abby is, so let me tell you. She was once a major women's soccer star. She retired from the US national team after they won the 2015 Women's World Cup. All these years later, she's still the all-time leading soccer player with 184 goals. She was a superstar and a role model for kids everywhere. But as we've already learned today, role models are often undependable. Abby was a great soccer player, but not so good at taking a taxi home instead of driving drunk. Number 1. Role model father. In June of 2019, an advisor to the California governor, Gavin Newsom, wrote an essay in which he called himself a role model dad. In the essay, Nathan Ballard wrote, "I believe I was put on earth to be a dad." He went on to talk about just how great he is with his kids and how great a role model he is for all the dads out there. In October of the next year, he was arrested and charged with domestic violence. He tried to suffocate his daughter with a pillow. As it turns out, pretty much anyone can write an essay about anything they want. But this is actually more horrific. According to the Napa County Sheriff's Department, Nathan not only suffocated his 4-year-old daughter, he also pushed his wife into a glass door. From what his wife Mara told the police, he had gotten angry at their daughter and decided to punish her by suffocating the child with a pillow. When Mara saw what he was doing, she went to intervene, and that was when she got shoved into the glass door. Nathan was booked on 2 charges of domestic violence, but released later that day after paying a $75,000 bail. Which of these people do you think is by far the worst role model? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit subscribe to help support the channel. See you next time. Bye!